Welcome to my channel. This is Fly Little Birds. My name is Nairi and I've got 2 adopted sons and I was a foster carer. So today we're going to talk about children trying to fit in, teenagers trying to fit in, and I think I'm going to show a little bit of my vulnerability in this video. Am I happy with that? No. Keeping it real though, guys, keeping it real. So we've had an incident recently with one of my adopted sons, and the other one grasped on him actually and said, guess what? This is what he's been doing at school, this is who he's been approaching, and this is what he's been asking to do. So first of all, my first reaction was, is the other one trying to grasp the other one up because they're just trying to get them into trouble? And then my next reaction was, oh my goodness, if this is true, I need to get in there quickly and do something about it. So how do you approach some of the more tricky subjects with teenagers? So you might be saying to me, well, it doesn't matter whether they're adopted, Nairi, you know, you get those situations anyway. I know you do. I've had 5 birth children and I have some regrets and some mistakes I've made, I think, which I'll share with you later. But on the whole, I think I understand teenagers pretty well. And on the whole, I feel like my adopted sons are much more vulnerable than my birth children ever were. So yeah, so how do you approach that subject when you know that perhaps they are going down the wrong path? And this is when my vulnerability comes in. My biggest fear for my adopted sons is not really whether I'll cope with them, you know, how life will turn out for them in a way. It's more, can I help them to choose the right path? Can I steer them down the right path? Or are there going to be too many other influences that are going to pull them the other way? And bearing in mind their development is behind, so like they might be behind by 2-3 years, maybe 4 years in their understanding of the consequences of what they might do. Again, you might say to me, yeah, but teenagers kind of do stuff anyway and they don't worry about the consequences, and I know that as well. But I feel like when I had the conversation with him about what it was he was trying to do, I had to kind of put a little bit more information for him to understand. I'm not going to say what it is because I think that would be a bit unfair on him, but I needed to explain to him perhaps the health risks of what he was trying to do, and I needed to explain to him where that path might lead him. I try not to give too much advice on this video, but one thing I will say is if you can keep an open dialogue with your adopted or foster children as much as possible, then they will be willing to share with you. Now, the son that I'm talking about is never willing to share because he's not an open book. He's a very private person and he struggles to explain himself anyway. So trying to get him to talk about anything is really difficult. It was really hard to get him to talk, and the first thing I got was a big fat lie, a fangled story about how he was trying to expose the other children that were doing what they were doing, and so that's why he approached them. Now, I knew that couldn't be true because he's quite a fearful child, so he wouldn't try and expose anybody, so I knew that couldn't be true. So even though actually my boys struggle with a lot of things, they can tell some really tall stories. They can actually lie pretty well. I know that's not a very nice thing to say, but they can cover their backs and they can cover each other's backs. So I knew that wasn't true, and then I just kind of asked a few more questions, and then he quite quickly admitted it, and we started to talk about where that path would go. And that's the frightening thing. And when I think about where the path could go, what he was trying to do, where the start of that was and where the end of that could be, and I did explain that to him. I said, I don't get angry with you because of what it is you're trying to do, because I feel like every teenager will do stuff behind their parents' back. Some of them will go more risky than others, and some of them will stay on that path of kind of self-destruct, and that's how it happens, isn't it? Teenagers that kind of want to listen to their peers or impress their peers more than they want to listen to you, or are troubled in some way and want to kind of escape that. They start with very small things, it seems, and then they go down that path. So I explained to him what that path would look like, and it made me feel really upset actually, because this is what upsets me, because I know they're vulnerable and I know they get picked on and I know they want to impress, but because they want to fit in, and I think adopted children and foster children have more issues around being accepted, because obviously they've had the ultimate rejection, and they, however much you say to them you were loved and you know your family just wasn't able to care for you, they've had that ultimate rejection of that first family not being able to have them. So they do carry that with them, and a lot of adoptees will tell you that they do carry that with them. And even if we try and love them to the ultimate degree, we can't just put everything right for them. And so I think adopted and foster children want to be accepted even more. That makes them vulnerable. Some of the developmental issues that I think adopted and foster children have make them more vulnerable to kind of be targeted, be laughed at, and be taken down a path that they may not fully understand themselves. And that's what upsets me the most about my boys, because I've always worried that that's what will happen to them, and I'm still worried about that happening to them, that they may be dragged down a path that once they're down that path they didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. So anyway, we had an open conversation about it. Actually, as I left the room, he actually hugged me. He said, "Hugs?" Gosh. Sorry, it just upsets me really, because it's sweet, isn't it, really? So give me a hug, and I'm like, I'm hoping that's done and gone, but I don't think it is. And I think what I also want to say here is I know deep down in my heart that I'm not enough to make sure that these boys are all right. I send up some good prayers, because I think it takes a community. It took his brother to say, "Guess what is happening?" I don't think it would be the other way around. If the other child saw the other brother doing stuff, I don't think he would grasp on him, because he's a different personality. So it took someone to say, this is what's happening. So it does take a community. It's not down to me, it's not down to his dad. It takes a community to say, guess what's happening. I think you need to kind of take on board what might be happening in the background. But I know I'm not enough to stop the world getting at these boys. I know I'm not enough. I want to flip it on its head a little bit, as I've had 5 birth children, and we were pretty firm with them when they were younger. I think they had a good childhood. I think that children, teenagers want to experiment no matter what you do, no matter what you say is right. And so I think you can't protect children and teenagers all the time, and I don't think you should. I think you should accept that there are going to be things going on behind your back that you're not entirely happy with, and that they might experiment trying out a few things that you don't want them to, but you would hope that by doing that when they're younger, that they may well then kind of get that out of their system. So that's the other side of it. You can't just protect them all the time. I know as a foster carer you're going to have very, very strict boundaries, because you're going to have that put on you. I think as an adoptive parent though, you are just a parent, and you have to accept that part of growing up is them making mistakes and realizing that who they are is who they're going to be. And no matter of trying to fit in, do you try and fit in? I try and fit in. I don't just say anything on these videos because I know I'll get shot down. So I try and fit in a way. And I hate confrontation. So I think as adults we still try and fit in, but I think as we get older and we especially get past our 20s, we realise that who we are, what baggage we've come from and with, is who we are, and we can't change that. We have to grow with it and live with it. So one of the conversations I had with my son is, it doesn't matter how you cut your hair. I mean, to a certain extent it does. I don't let him go and have a haircut that makes him look really dated or silly. I try to encourage him to think about having something that looks nice on him, which in the early days he couldn't have cared less, because both of my sons, I think, have taken a long time to care about what they look like, to care about their hygiene, to care about their sense of well-being, but they're beginning to. So yeah, anyway, I said, it doesn't matter what haircut you have, it doesn't matter what clothes you wear, it doesn't matter what you try to do, and if you try to fit in with a popular group that are experimenting, it won't make you like them. People will still realise that you are who you are underneath. And I said, if anything, it's probably going to mean you're going to get bullied and taken a mick of more, because you're trying to be like them and you are not like them. And I went through all the positives with him, because this is where I think the PACE parenting comes in, with sort of empathy, and said, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, I get it, but you are a kind boy, you're sensitive, you don't like to do things that are risky, generally speaking, and you know, you're trying to fit in to be like a crowd that actually are very popular but maybe not very nice. And then we had a conversation about what could he do about this. So I feel positive that we've had these conversations, and I guess I'm just encouraging you as a foster parent or adoptive parent to be approachable. I'm talking to myself here. I think the younger boy brings out more difficulties with me than the older boy, because I feel like he really doesn't want to listen, so I find that harder. But anyway, keep an open book with them, keep asking them how they are, you know, how school's going, and try to be there for them as much as possible rather than dictate to them what they're going to do. So I said to him, it's really hot today, super hot. I said to him, what can we do then about this? What are we going to do? We talked about the group of friends he's normally with, and he said they've turned against him a little bit, which I suspected might be the case, because I did see him walking down the street the other day when I was in the same area, and I saw that he was on his own. And one of his friends is actually got his own difficulties, so it can be quite annoying as well. So we talked about what was going on there. And I said, but you seem to have gone for the other extreme. You're not kind of getting on well with your normal friends. You've gone to the extreme of the popular guys who are doing things that you wouldn't normally do. So I said, there must be somewhere in the middle. There must be groups of children in the middle that you can try. And he said, yeah, there's a group of girls that I got on really well with, and within that group there's also a boy. And I said, go for it. Like, he's 14 at the moment, so I guess it's a bit tricky to kind of hang around with girls. I said, but give it a year or two, and all of those boys that are kind of popular, they'll want to be hanging around the girls. So I said, you know, just go for it. If you get on well with them, go for it. Don't hold back from kind of going for the people that you feel comfortable with. So guys, that is my fitting in video, and yeah, if you've enjoyed that video, then please subscribe and check out my channel. My channel's all about adoption, fostering, childhood trauma. There are loads of playlists on there. I'm sure you'll find some interesting content, and I'll see you on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.